as I was becoming more political conscious, I became very much convinced that what was behind colonization, the fact that people that were trading with Africans, this is another story, I don't know, all those who have done history, but Africans were trading in West Africa, especially in ancient Ghana, in Mali, and also Sudan. We're trading with Europeans, especially Portuguese, and there was no fear of being colonized. The issue of Africans being perceived as inferior came as Europe was advancing in with the Renaissance, Enlightenment, and then they were acquiring, mastering these weapons and all that. They started feeling superior and also arrogant. That's when things started to go. So I became very much convinced that behind that colonization was this gap in science and technology that developed between Africa and Europe. And therefore, if really we're going to get to the root as Africans, we have to close that gap, which is in education. Hence my resolve. Therefore, my resolve actually to become a chartered accountant was not just a resolve to become a chartered accountant at the beginning. It started by me confronting this thing of saying, as political activists, are we giving enough attention to the fact that what is really the root of us being colonized is the gap in science and technology? And because I had not, I was expelled from Lovedale, so I had no science, no laboratory subjects. I couldn't do them because I had to complete my studies in the mines. So really, the nearest to science I had was accounting and economics. So I could only advance in that area. But for me, the science that I'm talking about, really, I'm not talking, when I say it was a gap in science and technology, please, I'm not talking about chemistry necessarily or physics. I'm talking about science being a study of organized knowledge that is based on rules and you know and so on. So I'm talking about all science because even the science that I'm talking about, the gap in science, was also a science of organizing war. That's a science on its own. How you organize your army, that you take your people and train them for a while, and then how you organize your. So those are the things. I became convinced that was a change. So to make my statement, I said, you know, let me, but of course, it was not clear when I registered 40 whether I was going to do economics or accounting. But as I started to understand how important accounting is in actually enhancing trust in capital markets, and the fact that developing countries were going to be in need of capital from all over the world, I realized that accounting possibly was one of the most strategic disciplines that we should master if we want to be able to take control of our economies once we attain freedom. That's how then I got hooked up into accounting. And then I became more committed when around 1969, when I was doing my second year BCom, I became convinced that capital markets were very important, and therefore I zeroed in on that. That's how I became a chartered accountant. So going to university after the time that I was a political activist, I had gone to prison, was not just continuing with my education. I was, at the back of my mind was, how am I going to continue with the struggle? How am I going to continue the struggle? But I had realized that at the time that really there was a gap in the way that we're pursuing the struggle. We're not putting enough attention to education. So here, I deal, this was just a background here. The reason I have this slide here, where I'm dealing with contending with adversity and shedding excuses. One, I'm dealing with I'm addressing the fact that when you are poor, you are conquered, you are colonized, you are rural, and so on, or possibly you come from a single family, you may think that there's so many things stacked against you. You have no chance of getting out of that.